This is our final Bible class for the adults and the teens till September, and we'll resume again in September. And no, I don't know what the topic or subject will be for September yet, but I'll announce it before we get there when we get it together. But today we're going to be, well, let me pray and we'll get started. Father, thank you so much for this class, the interest in the class, and the subject we've been looking at. What a challenge to us, what a blessing, and to see this Christ-likeness. And I pray you'll give us much grace and desires in our hearts to follow its teaching in the Lord as he has shown us to do these things for his glory and for our becoming more like Jesus. Amen. Amen. Okay, let's finish up our passage today, Matthew chapter 7. We're at the last part of the Sermon on the Mount. We're going to finish that this morning, and then I have some review questions to ask us about the study we had so far this year in the Sermon on the Mount. So we're in Matthew 7, and we're at the last section, beginning in verse 24 through 27. It follows in line with the concluding remarks that have been made in chapter 7. The concluding remarks truly start with what's it called? The golden rule, right?
Yes.
Golden rule. I thought I got it right. That whatever you would sow in everything, do to others what you had them do to you. That's in verse 12 of chapter 7. And the rest of this is kind of summing up things. He uses the analogy of twos, groups of twos. So in verses 13 through 14, there are two gates and two roads. In verses 15 through 20, there are two prophets, two trees, and two kinds of fruit. And then verses 21 through 23, there are two destinies. And now we're looking at the last one, and he uses to sum up with the twos. It's the wise and foolish builders, where there are two builders, two houses, and two types of foundations. So let me begin in verse 24. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. And the rain came down, and the storms rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. Now, in this summary passage here, what do both houses have in common? The both men that built these houses. What do the houses have in common? It's the storm. They're going to face a storm, and the storm is going to be rough. The rain's going to come down heavy, the wind is going to blow, the water is going to rise, and that would be likened to us in our life as what? Trials, temptations, problems we face in this world. We're going to have problems. You're going to have difficulty. And he's explaining to us as the end here, the last thing he's going to teach in this sermon, Jesus is saying, be prepared for what's ahead. Be prepared for difficulty in this life. It's not going to be easy. There will be storms in everybody's life. And these storms can destroy you and destroy your confidence and many other things. Or they can do what? They can strengthen you. How? By seeing that your house is firm enough to withstand the storm. And so that's the important part. Now, in this situation, he talks about the builders being wise and foolish. And he likens it to the fact that this analogy he's going to use, the two builders and the two houses and the two foundations, he likens it to the fact that this is people who are going to take the Sermon on the Mount, the things that he said here, and put these words into practice. If you put these words into practice, you're going to be like which builder? The wise builder. If you don't put these words into practice, when the storms hit you in life, you're going to be like what? The foolish builder. And what's going to happen to the house? It's going to come crashing down. Yeah. And what do you think he likens in you as a professor of faith in the Lord to the crashing of a house to? What aspect? Begins with F-A-I-T-H. Anybody spell that one yet? Faith, yeah, faith. It refers to your trust in the Lord, your faith in the Lord. You know, people, professing believers, whether they are or not, you can't tell, only they and the Lord can know. But professing believers many times, when trials come and their life just gets shipwrecked and God doesn't give them what they want, they blame the Lord and they give up on Christianity, or they give up following God. They say, what's the use? You know, that's a shipwrecked life, and that's what he's talking about. How do you avoid having a shipwrecked life? What do you do? The first verse, verse 24. What do you do? Look at what it says. Put my words into practice. I haven't told you these things, he says, just to give you knowledge. I haven't told you these things just to titillate your heart and your mind about our relationship. Why have I told you these things? I want you to put them in practice so that you can do what? Withstand the trials and the storms of life you're going to face. And that's a big portion of this, is be able to withstand the things you're going to face. And we're going to face many kinds of problems in this life. So, I'm going to use this class, being it's our last one for the summer, and the last one on the Sermon on the Mount, to ask some questions of how you did with this study. How did you make out with looking at the Sermon on the Mount? And let me ask you that generally, and then I have some specific ones I want to ask you. So anybody want to share how this study has affected them since we've been in September to June, how this has affected you? What have you learned some things? Has it helped you? Do you disagree? Do you not like it? You know, whatever you want to say. What do you think about the Sermon on the Mount? Doris?
Well, you said something, I don't know which of the weeks, but you helped me understand that everything in the Sermon on the Mount goes back to those first few verses.
Good.
The Beatitudes.
The Beatitudes.
Where I was taking them as individual chunks. So I appreciate that.
Good. The attitude of the Beatitudes is what's going to get you through the rest of the sermon. That's true. That's important. To be at this attitude in order to apply these truths properly. Very good. Any other comments you want to make, or things you saw in the study while we're going through this?
It's taught me to be more patient and understanding.
Okay, good. Carmine, more patient.
And that's big.
That's a biggie, huh?
For me, yeah.
Well, for all of us probably.
Very much.
I'm glad you admitted it. Okay. Let me give you a couple of things to think about. What teaching or verses from chapters 5 to chapter 7 have impacted you the most? Review them. Go back and look at some of them. I'll give you a chance to think this through. What verses or passage, what teaching did the Lord give us here that has impacted you the most? I think Doris just gave us hers.
Well, actually, if you want the most, it's
Okay.
do not worry.
Do
I
not.
think at my stage in life, you worry about what the future's going to be for you. You wonder,
Yes.
Do I have enough money to sustain ourselves now that we're retired? And I've learned, don't worry about it. God knows our needs.
Very good. Very good. Bruce?
I've read the Sermon on the Mount before, but it was great to do a deep dive into it. I've never spent 35 weeks studying it.
Only Bruce would know how many weeks we've been on this. That's the ingenuity.
So one of the passages that I'd looked at before and kind of stuck with me, and I think this just helped reinforce it, was Matthew 6:3. You know, when you're giving, give in a manner where not even your right hand knows what your left hand is doing. And I just think that's a great attitude, and goes back to, don't do things for external recognition and acceptance and glory. That's not what God's all about.
Right.
Just do things in a way that helps others, even if they might not even know you're helping them.
Yes,
And
that's
that's like
they don't know it was
the
you.
Spirit. Yeah.
The crown will be waiting for you later.
Amen.
Bob?
It had a profound, I can't even tell you how profound of an effect on me. And I actually carry a card, and every day my goal, Jesus, please shine through me so that others can know your awesome salvation. Amen. And the reason I can say that is because of everything we've gone over. It's so overwhelming what I've learned, and I have to continue to be here, and every day I'm focused on trying to be like Jesus.
Very good.
So that's what this did for me.
If that's the outcome of it, you hit the nail on the head. Can't beat every day wanting to be more like Jesus. Others that you want to mention? What impact did this Sermon on the Mount, verses 5, 6, and 7, have on you the most?
I came from a very dysfunctional family. They were alcoholics and drug addicts, and I wasn't treated kindly when I was young. Especially this one particular individual was my grandmother's boyfriend. And honestly, for 70 years, I couldn't forgive this man, even to the fact that I would think, I don't want to see him in heaven. He doesn't belong there. And it was through this class and your teaching that I've just recently, months, I guess a couple months, that I have been able to forgive him.
I gotta give you a hug, girl. That is just an amazing testimony. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
I'm glad the Lord blessed you that way.
Thank you.
That's really good. That's a life-changing study, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
That's good to know.
It is.
That's good to know. Bill?
Couple things. Number one is, when I read through the Beatitudes on my own, I kind of put my own interpretation into poor in spirit. I mean, it's really hard to figure out what all that means. So the class is really a good class in understanding what that means as compared to what I thought it meant.
What I presented was one thought that several Bible commentators and scholars have concluded. I want to say that I had a corner on the market with that. Some people, though, will say, blessed are the poor, and they'll leave out in spirit. And they use it as a means of trying to help the problem of poverty and stuff. I know it doesn't mean that, because he says poor in spirit. It doesn't just say poor. So there's a lot you'll read and hear about this, but I just ask you to do your best to listen to what Jesus said. And then if you want to understand what he means by it, the best way is to do what? Look at his life. He is the best commentator on this message. Thank you, Bill. Very good. Others that have learned some things they want to share?
Pastor?
Yeah.
The other thing was, when I was going through the Beatitudes, in my Bible, you visited here several times.
Yes.
So I have a little mark every time you've been here. And the thing that I wrote down about verse 5 was that, or chapter 5 was, the Beatitude describes Christian character.
Yes.
And character seems to be
Lacking.
lacking, there you go, in today's world.
Yes.
So if you're interested in having Christian character, that's the spot to be.
And the Lord taught me years and years ago, character precedes conduct. Character produces conduct. And Christ-like character is necessary in order to have Christ-like conduct. So if you're struggling with something and you're not able to really do what God is telling us we need to do, then you need to first adjust your character. Then you'll have the strength and wisdom and power and desire to deal with the conduct. So character is always first. Thank you. That's very, very important. Others you want to mention today about what you learned?
I've always thought Bill was quite a character anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's
I
You're
can
one heck of a
testify.
character.
Bob?
I'm sorry to double dip, but I did want to say another profound thing happened, that over my lifetime, I really have read through the Bible twice.
Uh-huh.
But the difference is, what's profound is that I've never had someone like yourself.
Well, that's what teachers are for.
Well, but that, I haven't had one there. I was my own teacher. So I want to share that with you also.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
The power
that.
of you helping take me through changed everything for me.
This is what the giftedness of a pastor-teacher is all about. The job is pastor-teacher, shepherding the sheep and teaching the sheep. It's not preacher, it's pastor-teacher. And it's a relational job, a relational description. So even as you're looking for your next pastor-teacher, you want to be very concerned about those qualities, because it's the heart and the giftedness from God that matters the most. Everything else you can learn and you can gain in on-job training, but without the character and the conduct of a God-touched, gifted life, it's just not going to happen. I truly am amazed that God uses things that I say to help people change their lives. It's just remarkable. It's humbling and remarkable, and I'm thankful for it. And keep going. Let me ask you this question. What lesson do you find the hardest to do in the things he said in the sermon? What verse or verses or paragraph, what lesson, what do you find, if you're willing to admit it, the hardest to do? I'll start to give you a chance to think about this. If you go to Matthew chapter 5, and if you look at verse 44 through 48, I don't think I'm going to surprise anybody with this. 43, I mean, through 48. This is a hard one for me. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemies. Now, the Bible never said that. The Pharisees taught that, but the Bible never said that. Moses was never told that, but that's what they were teaching. They were giving you a reason to hate those you wanted to hate. Hate your enemies. Jesus said, but I tell you, and he's the new lawgiver, he's higher than Moses. He's the new lawgiver of the new covenant. Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. That's my hardest lesson in this sermon so far, is to truly love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Now, I don't have any personal enemy that I'm aware of right now. Maybe one of you are, I don't know. But I don't have any personal enemies that I'm aware of. And I don't have anybody that's persecuting me that I'm aware of, you know. Maybe I'm just too dumb to know it's happening, I don't know. But I have people in the news. I have people in other walks of life. and what you see and what goes on. And these things sometimes bother me greatly. I speak for Bill in this because we have talked about this together. Watching the news sometimes makes me so aggravated I can't even go to sleep. Understanding what's happening and what people are saying and the harshness and the bullying and the name calling and all the things that take place, it just is just remarkable what happens. And I find that I'm not praying for people that aggravate me. I'm complaining about people that aggravate me. And I'm not loving and wanting to see these people loved by God. I'm kind of hoping that God sends some lightning and strikes them down and stuff with things. And it's not any one person, it's just the world in general with many of these things. You know, when I just seeing the latest thing that happened with all these children bombed in a school, and to get to the Hamas that are there, I understand your enemy, but look at all these kids that died and people that died. That aggravates the daylights out of me. And I'm not talking about whether it's Israeli or Palestinian. I'm just saying killing the children with weapons of war. Somebody had their hand up. Angie?
I kind of had my hand up. I'm with you on that, but what helps me to get not past it, but I see it and I can kind of understand it because we're expecting people to live and act like they have the Holy Spirit in them, and they don't.
You're right.
You know, they're dead.
You're right. We're expecting them to act like believers.
So they're acting like.
They're acting like rabbits eating carrots.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So I always pray for God to save them in spite of them.
Yeah.
You know, in spite of themselves. Just like He saved me in spite of me. It was His mercy.
And that's what it shows me, that I don't have the compassion that I should have for the lost, and that I would rather judge instead of love.
Right.
And I don't pray for them and in a good way, in a righteous way. And this is very, it's very enlightening because I see myself as somebody that loves people.
Yes.
But when it comes to people that aggravate the world and are enemies of God, it's hard to love the enemies of God. But I have to.
Right.
And one way is by praying for them in a positive way, not, Jesus is the example again. On the cross, what did He say to those that are crucifying? Father, forgive them, they know not what they're doing. They're blind sinners following their sinful hearts. And having that attitude, and going back to Christ as the example again, having that attitude is very hard because I'd rather complain.
Yeah, but see, when I complain, it does something to me.
Oh, it doesn't help me.
Yeah, right. So I want to be free of that and really leave it in God's hands.
Yes.
And do what I'm supposed to do by praying for them.
Anybody else want to add to my sorrows? Bob will. Oh, your own. I thought you meant to mine. Go ahead.
No, you said everything that is within me as far as the whole thing that you just said, which really kind of shook me because it's right in me. So I can connect with you 100%.
And I think I'm being a kind person, but I'm not. And God shows me when I get aggravated, I'm not being a kind person. I got to change my attitude towards my enemies or the enemies of God, and realize that He'll take care of things first. And others that anybody else want to admit a hard passage that you found hard in the Sermon on the Mount to deal with?
Mine is the same as yours, but But I have to back up a step and don't even talk about loving and forgiving enemies. Sometimes it's loving and forgiving family members.
Yeah, those that you love.
Yeah, yeah. Forget about the enemy
Yeah.
part. I have trouble with,
And it starts there, doesn't it?
People you
Yeah.
love, people you like.
It starts there. We eventually have to get to the enemy part, but don't ignore the first things.
Yeah.
Carmine?
So Matthew 5, verse 38, to me personally is, if everybody could do that a little more, have a little more of turning the cheek, you know, praying for people instead of arguing.
That's very insightful of you to see that. Yes, that's true. To
Maybe there would be
to
less.
turn the cheek proverbially, whichever it means, like not arguing, not speaking back, knowing that if I say what I want to say, it's just going to create an argument
Yeah, it's just gonna
and
get-
friction and hardship. Let me walk away from it and leave it alone. That's good. That's important. Come on, there has to be some passages here, Kevin.
What stood out to me is verse 37, you know, when they're talking about oaths, you know, all you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one, you know.
Let your word be your word. Yep. That mean what you say. And the courts allow you to do that today by opting out of taking an oath, but what do they call it?
plead the fifth.
Swear.
No, I'm thinking about it. When you, instead of swearing in on a Bible, you
Oh,
can
affirm or something? Yeah.
affirm that what you're going to say is true.
Yeah.
Basically, that you mean your yes is yes. Yeah. Others that see hard things in here? Oh, there's so many hard things in here, but I find that the hardest. Alvis is giving me a look like, you got to be kidding me, brother.
No, I have a couple.
You got a couple? I'm not going to ask you what they are. But what are they? You want to share?
No.
I've gotten a lot better with my discernment as far as noticing Christians from fake Christians. And I had trouble with confronting them, letting them know that I know that you're fake. And I've not been putting it out there like that since getting into this sermon. I'm not, holding it in, just allowing.
Well, that's good. But equally, holding it in, what about dealing with it on the inside? Are you dealing with it when you hold it in?
Yes, I'm
Good.
really
Good.
taking into consideration that
Good.
they're growing and
Good.
God will work on them.
Very good. Very good. Anybody else want to share anything that has really impacted you here? Okay, I got another question to ask you. How has this study impacted your life, that is, your walk with the Lord? And I'm going to give you one for me was Matthew chapter 6, verses 25 through 34, where it's already been mentioned today about not worrying. Was it you, Angie, who talked about not worrying?
Yeah.
Dars. That same passage about not worrying. And you know what hit me was, and I told you this in the class, this was a passage that God used in calling me into ministry, because I was going to have to stop teaching and all the coaching and things that made money for me in that job. I was going to have to stop that. And my wife, I didn't know this at the time, but 1 year into seminary was going to become pregnant and not even work anymore. So we went through 2 years of seminary without any income other than the church giving us a stipend of $50 a week for doing youth work. And it was a hard decision to make. But this passage God used to show me, because I already had heard from him in the Word about him calling me, and I knew he was calling me to do this. So because he's calling me, that means he's going to provide the way. If he's telling you to do this, he's going to give you the tools you need to do it. And this helped me greatly to be able to let go of worrying about where the money's going to come from and where our needs are going to be met, the food and the clothing and all that stuff. And it became a thing of, you just trust me and I'll show you. Well, he showed, and I shared a few of the stories. He showed me so abundantly, so it had to be of him to see. Well, through time, I kind of forgot that. And now that I'm getting to the point of, well, I'm going to transition out of full-time pastor ministry, these things have come back. What are you going to do about this and this and this and this? I don't know. And I had to, this message once again got me into the understanding, it's still the same. I'm still going to take care of you. Don't worry about it. And it was an easier lesson to learn the second time than it was the first time. And hopefully when the day comes, it'll still be my lesson that I've learned. But this has always been a favorite section to me in the Sermon on the Mount. Anybody else like to share something that impacted your life in a wonderful, positive way about this?
Just in line with what you just said, I've often, I felt that way all my life about, oh, what about this? What about this? I didn't get this, and so on and so forth, usually about money. And the Lord has really showed me over the last 5 or 10 years that I've taken care of you every day of your life. You have had what you needed every day. I'm not going to stop.
That's the good part. I'm not going to stop.
Don't worry about the future.
Yeah.
I've taken care of you. Have faith. I will take care of you.
And it's not sit back and do nothing.
Right.
It's do what I give you to do. Be what I'm calling you to be, and all this will be provided.
Yeah.
If you think you can just sit back and do nothing and be a stinker, it ain't going to work. You got to first be what God calls you to be, and then do what he gives you to do. Very good.
There's a verse, I think it's in Proverbs 3, I'm not sure, but the gist of it is a prayer to God that says, make me neither rich nor poor, but satisfied.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
like right in the middle, just,
Because if I'm too poor, I might steal, and if I'm rich, I might depend upon my riches and forget you.
exactly.
Yeah, what it says. Paraphrased as well. Any others? Okay, Bob?
This is my last, but it's,
No, you can say,
there's
you
so many
can tell
things
more.
that he's done for me, and I'm not afraid to share this because I had a dependency on alcohol, but God freed me 38 years ago. I actually chair AA meetings, and the sharing, especially, this reminds me almost of an AA meeting in a good sense, in the sharing of my brothers and sisters here, like they have, every single, Darlene, everybody that's shared, it just moves me to appreciate maybe God's talking to me through them too. And I just think it's good for everybody as brothers and sisters to have times like this when we share like that. It's been a major
Well,
impact.
it just seems appropriate as we sum up the 3 chapters we've looked at and studied for 35 weeks. Thanks for counting. I didn't know for sure how many days that we had to go over this. And one of the biggest impacts that this has made on my life now, because like somebody said, I have visited this many times. Who said that? Bill, yes, I have talked about things in here many times. But one of the biggest things that impacted me this time anew was to make, if you'll turn back to me in Matthew chapter 5, to make verses 3 through 16 a prayer list. To turn that into a prayer list. And this really gets you away from having a prayer list which is just all about you and yours. Just praying for you and yours and health, car, and school, and friend, all that kind of stuff. I'm
I just
chomping
missed-
at the bit.
It's not a
I
question.
thought you already had your last time.
No, this is a different type of question.
Oh, okay.
What did you just say as far as where to get? I just missed.
Matthew chapter 5, verses 3 through 16. You don't mind me joking when you hear that?
No, I love it.
Okay.
I'd be disappointed if you didn't.
All right. That's twice now, though.
Well, I know it's only 3 strikes.
You may have as many as you want.
No, I'm
This is
done.
like T-ball.
I'm just
You can
listening.
swing as much as you want to swing. Okay, so verse 3. I have intended to make verse 3 through 12 in one prayer session. I've never got that far yet. It's hard to do. So I've been breaking it up, and then where I leave off, pick up the next day and make that my new prayer, part of my prayer life. But to make it a prayer list, you know how our prayer lists tend to be involved with people, especially with health? It's because it's the thing that we all have in common, we face, happens all the time, and people are always sick around us, and even life-threatening diseases and stuff. By the way, we prayed for one of Nick's friends who he went over to witness to they called him to ask him to come over and share the gospel with him. The family did, and they're not believers. And he went over to a coworker he had for years who treated him really bad, but he kept up with him, and he shared that prayer request with us Saturday morning. Saturday night the man died, and Nick had gotten to be there in the room, in the hospice care room, with him and about 4 or 5 other people, and he went through the whole, telling him, you say you believe in God, but you got to trust in Jesus. You got to understand. He went through the whole thing with them for everybody to hear. It was just a great testimony. And he told me this morning, he found out when he went after prayer meeting later that he had died.
How did you receive the message?
Yes, hopefully. So, blessed are poor in spirit. And you ask God to, let me be poor in the spirit of self and rich in you, Lord. Let me really follow the Holy Spirit. And you go through these things, and blessed are those who mourn. You see, these things are about character and life-changing attributes. That's what they're about. Praying for Christ-like character and life-changing attributes. And by the time you get through the blessedness, that section, and then you get down to verses 11 and, well, it begins with verse 10, first of all. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness. Do I really have a heart? Now, I don't feel persecuted at all right now. But do I have a heart that's ready for that should it happen? Am I really approved before God and pleasing to the Lord because of my attitude about people persecuting? But then verses 11 and 12 help me understand it better about my own life right now. Look at what it says. Blessed are you when people insult you. Well, that does happen, doesn't it? We may not be going through persecution for our faith, but you do get insulted for your faith sometimes, or just for other things. When they persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of your relationship to Christ. That happens. That happens at work for people many times. Be sure to pray that they go to hell. Is that what verse 12 says? No, it says rejoice and be glad. Where do you come up with that? Where do you come up with rejoice and be glad? That's what Jesus did. That's what he wants me to have as an attitude. Rejoice and be glad. Now, you see, reading it is one thing, but making it a prayer, oh boy, that's tough. Rejoice and be glad. But you have to get your mind where in order to do that here and now. Where? What's the next phrase say? Because great is your reward in heaven. You got to be heavenly minded, not earthly minded. You got to realize that what you're doing here and now is in order to lay up treasures in heaven. It's in order to be heavenly minded. I want to have crowns to throw at the feet of Jesus. Not to wear myself. Doesn't say that's what's going to happen. But we get the crowns, and the purpose of getting the crowns is that you can throw them at the feet of Jesus. You can lay them at the feet of Jesus. I don't want to just have a couple to say, well, here, Lord, I want to have a truckload to be able to shower him with. He says, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. You're not alone. This is not new. Christians, you got to expect this. It changes your attitude right away. So that's the beginning of my prayer list now. That's the new prayer list I have. I've put away the other one. That's mostly just all people. I still remember the people. It's not hard to forget them. But then comes more things to pray for. Look at verse 13. You are the salt of the earth. So I pray, God, make me the salt of the earth. Let me see that. I want to be the salt of the earth. Now, to be the salt of the earth, I got to be effective for you. I got to be living a Christ-like life. If salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. If you're not salt, you're nothing. You're gravel. Verse 14, Lord, let me be light to the world. Town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under the bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Not because you're trying to show off your good deeds, but because you're concentrating on living for Christ, they see them. You don't have to try to show them off. You don't have to prepare that. Just do it, and God will have them see what he wants them to see. And the best part is, many times, they see what you didn't realize you were revealing. You weren't even trying to show, but they saw it. And that's the best part. I haven't even gotten to verses 21 through 25 yet as my prayer list. Or 27 through 30 with the lust problem. I haven't gotten to that far in the sermon yet. I haven't gotten past verse 11. Not verse 11, verse 16. I haven't gotten past that because once I get to the end of that, guess what I do?
Start again.
I go back to verse 3 again. Yeah, I start with verse 3 again because I find that I need an attitude adjustment. And this is the best way to adjust your attitude, is to be at this attitude. And so this is what I've learned from this class this year and going through the sermon this time, is that this needs to be my new prayer list. And I need to think about these things and ask God for help with these things. Okay, any others you want to share? We've got 4 more minutes.
If we were to go, it's more of a question really.
Sure.
So obviously if you do visit cbc.org, you get the...
Obviously...
If you do go on cbc.org, you get visit cbc.org.
You can go to the classes again.
But can we get these classes on there?
Yes, they're on there too.
I've enjoyed every one of these.
They're on there too.
So
right, Miller? Sunday school's on there along with preaching that day.
Could we get a date of the first one so that, would that be possible?
September.
September.
Probably the Sunday after Labor Day. I think we started Sunday school the Sunday after Labor Day. Labor Day weekend, and the following Sunday. So if you go to September 2023, does it go back that far on there, Paul? Yeah, he says yeah. Good question. Yeah, aren't they together like Sunday school message?
Yeah, they usually go back by date, but they're all dated in the title, so they should be able to find them.
Okay.
Yeah, they should be able to
Very
find
good.
them.
Thanks for letting us know.
Absolutely.
I didn't realize you don't even use CDs anymore or DVDs. He let me know at the meeting. I wanted him to come and set up the camera and video me telling our family the story of my father in World War II, with what he went through and stuff. Part because of Normandy, it reminded me. And I say, so can I meet you? And I hate to take your time. So he goes, what are you talking about? I said, well, I want to make a CD, a DVD. Not a CD, DVD. He goes, Pastor, nobody plays DVDs anymore. You can't even get a DVD player. He said, take your camera, put it on record, put it in front of you, and say what you want to say. It's that simple. I didn't know that. Did you know that, Maureen? I didn't know that either. No, Maureen. No, you're younger. You might know that. But yes.
You can get one at the thrift store.
I would be the only one with one. I told some people it's not bad to have an old video, a CD player, in case you got some ones you want to see sometime or something. You know.
I have one. VHS.
Well, that's good. VHS also. That's good. I got some VHSs you can have.
I think the bottom line for me throughout this lesson series, and I know it's become a little bit of a cliche, but what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Really, in any situation
Yes.
that you're faced with, what would he do? It doesn't have to be a difficult situation. It can be a happy situation. What would, if Jesus were here, standing next to me, what would he do?
Yes.
It's the bottom line.
We followed the series before this, which was thinking biblically about contemporary issues and all things. And having dealt with thinking biblically about things, I felt it was, the Spirit was showing me it's good that we now look about how to do biblical things, how to follow Jesus in these matters. I'm never far from 1 Peter, because 1 Peter is a great book to tell you how to live a Christian life in the midst of persecution or trials or a rough world. And it's really good for that. And don't ever get far from the Sermon on the Mount. Don't ever leave it alone. Visit it often. It's important. But once you have got it down pat and you're doing it 100%, now you don't have to go there anymore. Okay, you're all dismissed. Go back, have some coffee.
Thanks, Pastor.
You're welcome. You're